Am I the asshole for telling a morbid joke about my son? Asking here because I don't feel comfortable discussing this with family or friends right now. My wife and I have 4 boys 17, 15, 13, and 10. We lost our 15-year-old in an accident last October, and grieving has truly been a process. My wife and I have very different styles of grieving. I really like to talk about my son and what happened to him, but she wants to process things by herself and doesn't want to talk about it. We still have a very close marriage, we just talk about everything other than our son. My wife was out with friends today, and when she got home a few hours ago, she asked me where the boys were. I told her, oldest, is with a friend, 13-year-old, is out in the yard, 10-year-old, is in the basement, and 15-year-old, should be right where we left him. Immediately, she said I was fucked up for saying that. I told her that I cope with humor, and clearly, she doesn't. I respect what she does, but she's got to respect what I do. She called me a fucking pig for joking about our son like that and said she was taking the boys out for dinner. While they were out, she texted me to say that she's really horrified with how callous I am about the death of our son, saying she was genuinely concerned I might be a sociopath. When she got home, she went straight to bed. I tried to sit with her and she told me not to touch her. Our oldest asked me why their mom was in such a bad mood, and when I told him, he laughed at the joke. I think my wife is being extremely sensitive about this, but I also can understand this might be a time and place situation. Still, I think place should be my own home. Am I the asshole for telling a morbid joke? Gentle, you are the asshole. My dad and I both coped using humor. My mom doesn't. When he died, I made jokes about it sometimes to my friends, to my wife. Not to my mother, who would have just found it upsetting and hurtful. It's okay to grieve how you need to grieve, but as someone who handles it the same way you do, you need to respect how your wife grieves, too. Use humor elsewhere, and apologize to your wife. You are the asshole. I get your way of coping is with jokes, but bro, it hasn't even been a year. I can't imagine watching a child grow up for 15 years only for them to tragically die in an accident. I think my wife is being extremely sensitive about this. Who wouldn't be sensitive about the loss of one of their kids? You want to make morbid jokes? Even though I personally think joking about the death of your own son is a horrible way to cope with the loss, fine. But don't make jokes like this at your own wife, man. Also, I'm sorry for y'all loss. You are the asshole. I don't think you joking about it is wrong. However, your wife, who you know grieves differently, shouldn't be exposed to that part of your grieving. You knew this would hurt her, you chose to do it anyway. You are the asshole. Your way of grieving is one thing, but you acknowledge it isn't hers. That was just callous and cruel. You are the asshole. You admit that you have different grieving styles but apparently still think hers is wrong and that she should just suck it up and tolerate your humor. But why should she do that? To her, you are disrespectful of both the weight of your son's loss and of her and her needs. That isn't her being too sensitive, it's you being too insensitive. If you cope with humor, fine. But you don't have to cope that way with her, at her expense. You might as well have slapped her in the face. Am I the asshole for getting my grandma kicked out? I, 15F, am mixed race. My mom, 44F, is black and my dad, 47M, is white. His family is not racist, besides his mother, 78F. She is horrible and barely anyone in the family can tolerate her. I barely see her and don't know her well. Recently, the witch had a heart attack. She lived alone and she wasn't found for a while. My dad has 2 older brothers and initially my grandma was supposed to move in with one of them because grandma is racist. However, they both live in a different state and my grandma didn't want to leave behind her friends and family, so she promised she would be respectful to me and my mom. My dad still didn't want to let her live with us, but my mom, who is too kind for her own good, felt bad and convinced him to let her live with us. It has been nightmarish having her here. She's only been here since Christmas time, but I am sick of her. She doesn't say anything to me, but she is constantly bullying my mom. She threw out half my mom's spice cabinet because the food smelled. She makes constantly comments on my mom's hair and she accidentally ruined one of my mom's cultural dresses with bleach. My mom also has a fruit and vegetable garden that she lovingly tends to. And my grandma will say things like, "No wonder you're so dark, you're always outside." She also says that my baby brother, 6 Malliance, is lucky to have my dad's light eyes and fairer skin unlike me, because I look exactly like my mom. Grandma behaves herself in front of my dad, and my mother won't tell him about what's been going on. I decided that I would tell him, and he got into a massive argument with her. He's arranged with his brother to have her live with him instead. My mother is really annoyed at me because she was the target of the racism, not me, and she didn't want to tell my dad and get an old woman kicked out. She's telling me that my grandma is a product of her time and I should have been understanding because she's old, her health is fragile and she'll be lonely living with my uncle. I'm starting to feel bad now because I know loneliness and big changes aren't good for the elderly. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole, you didn't get your grandma kicked out. Your grandma got herself kicked out. Clearly her residing in your home was conditional on her being respectful, she broke the conditions for her stay. Not the asshole. And I'm sorry your last 3 months have been plagued like this. I couldn't stand the thought of someone disrespecting someone I love in their own home when all said person has done was show them kindness. I'm sorry, the civil rights movement was 60 years ago. Maybe her parents were a product of their time, but she's had 60 years to evolve into a decent human being. I would have a very open convo with your mom and ask her to put herself in your shoes for a minute. How would she have felt if she witnessed her mother being bullied day after day? Wouldn't she want it to stop? Also, bring up how it made you feel unwelcome and judged in your own home. If you phrase it like that, she may understand. Clearly your granny's in awe, but what's confusing here is your mother's position. She don't tell you dad about this? Why the hell not? She blames you? Why? You're not the asshole, seems to me you solved the problem efficiently. But your mother is inexplicable. Not the asshole, you did the right thing by telling your dad and he did the right thing by moving her ass out of your house. She's an adult and she knew the consequences of behavior like that. When she realized your mom was just going to take it, that's when she got too confident in her position and started making the comments more nasty. It would have continued to get worse. When abusers like her aren't kept in check, they will just escalate. Don't ever feel bad for telling your dad what she was doing. Your dad did the right thing by protecting you and your mom. Good for him. Not the asshole kid. You did the right thing. Your mom is too kind. I agree your grandmother is a product of her time, but she's in someone else's house and she's disrespectful to her host. In regards to your mom saying the abuse was toward her and you shouldn't have interfered, look at it this way, you didn't do this for your mom. She was willing to tolerate the abuse, but rather did it for yourself because you didn't want to see your mom go through that abuse. Good on you. Am I the asshole for dumping my sister's toddler onto our parents and refusing to babysit? I, Leah, 26NB they, them, have a sister, Riza, 30F, who has a 2-year-old kid, 2M, with her husband, Chris, 34M. I adore my nephew. I live apart from my family but in the same city, so I visit every other weekend, whenever my schedule allows. I have babysat my nephew before, usually weekends, always in my sister's home. The other day, my sister messaged me that she, Bill, and kid were on the way to my apartment. A bit out of the blue, but maybe they're headed somewhere and stopping by to say hi. However, when I answered my door, my sister began hurriedly explaining that they need someone to watch the kid while they go to their doctor's appointments and I'm their only option. Problems. I'm self-employed WFH but juggle 3 clients, jobs with time-sensitive deadlines. I have ADHD so I hyperfocus, meaning I might not notice something wrong with my nephew if I'm working. My tiny apartment is not childproof in any way. I'm only just starting to recover from an infection. My sister knows all of this. I try to explain that I can't watch the kid. My sister overrides me and says our brother is teaching and our retired parents specifically requested time off from helping with their grandchild. Sister plus brother-in-law really need to get to the hospital so they need me to do this. After a firm thank you, they leave. Attempt not to panic failed successfully. I send my sister several messages any alternatives and she replies again that she's really sorry but I'm their best option. It's only 6 hours at most and she'll make it up to me. I text my mom and after a while she replies saying she and my dad need a break from watching the kid, so they'll be taking the afternoon to catch up on Netflix. I don't text my brother because I know he's in class. No permission from sister daycare plus scared to leave a 2-year-old in daycare anyway. So I booked a taxi and went over to my parents' place. They were not happy when I showed up with nephew but I said I had work, was still sick, and their house is much better equipped for a 2-year-old than my place. My mom sorta made a face and huffed but took my nephew. I went back home to work. Later in the day my sister sends a barrage of texts scolding me for being irresponsible with her child and inconveniencing my parents. For her, I could have made the sacrifice for just a few hours, and it was an asshole move to do what I did. Her husband also sent a text that he was disappointed with how I handled the situation and expected better of me. Then my mom sent several texts saying they're angry with me for ruining their day because they'd specifically said they didn't want to watch my nephew. To me, I had enough justification not to babysit my nephew, but my family is labeling me the asshole for my actions. Was I wrong to decide how I did? Am I the asshole for dumping my nephew on my parents? You don't need to apologize to anyone. This was not an emergency. Your sister knew exactly what she was doing. Your parents are likely upset because she has been abusing their help. While they are understandably upset, they should be upset with your sister, not you. Not your child, not your responsibility. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Poor planning and extreme entitlement on their part does not mean you should drop everything and serve them. I hope you don't apologize and nor pay heed to your sister or parents. If they wish to have you babysit, they need to tell you beforehand and accept the answer might be no. You are not the asshole. Your sister and brother-in-law are the Oz. The type who think family excuses all sorts of boundary-violating behavior. You had a valid reason for not watching your nephew, but guess what? You don't need a reason other than, I don't want to. The phrase, that doesn't work for me, is vague and impersonal enough to hopefully not start a war with someone who is reasonable. With someone who isn't reasonable, it doesn't give them a toehold to argue why your reason isn't valid, to them. Alternately, just stop answering the phone or door. If they're honestly dumb enough to leave their child outside your door, they deserve to have CPS called on them. The hypocrisy for accusing you of doing the very things they are doing is astonishing. The entitlement to your time and space and to lay responsibility at your feet for watching a baby is maddening. You did the right thing. I get that shit happens and parents have emergencies, but they doesn't entitle them to bully their way into your apartment and give you a babysitting job with no notice and no room for you to say no. You are not the asshole. Not the asshole. Next time your sister tries to drop off her kid without asking you, tell her you're going to call the police. She's bullying you into free childcare without your consent. Time to grow a pair and put your foot down. Am I the asshole for vacationing at my sister's dream honeymoon destination? My sister has always been a wedding person, as in she's dreamed and planned her wedding even before meeting her boyfriend. Now that she's engaged, she wants it all. Expensive cinematic venue, guest list in the hundreds, designer dress, etc. And she cares a lot about being the first, and making everything special and just hers. I legitimately have nothing against that, and I'm happy that she's getting what she wants. The issue arose because my boyfriend planned an anniversary getaway to a tropical island that happens to be where my sister planned to honeymoon. I had no idea that she was planning to go there. They hadn't actually booked anything, she had just planned on it. And I didn't know until I shared the news with my family during a bi-weekly dinner we have together. Additionally, this was a surprise trip planned and paid for by my boyfriend, who would absolutely have no way of knowing my sister's plans. He's not close with her or her fiancé. She says that if I go there first, I'll take away the surprise and specialness of the destination, and is insisting that I cancel or change the destination. I'm pretty upset and called her entitled because there's no way I'm going to tell my boyfriend to change something very nice he did for me. My sister is now threatening to remove me from the wedding if I don't change my vacation, and my parents are begging me to give in to keep the peace. My boyfriend has offered to pick a new location because he hates seeing me upset and fighting with family, so I wonder if I'm being the asshole for being so stubborn about it all. Not the asshole. Why should you have to cater to her insane behavior? Not the asshole. Your sister is being a bridezilla. She thinks no one can visit her honeymoon destination before her? That is ridiculous. Not the asshole. Personally, I'd skip the wedding. She sounds like a pain in the ass. Hey guys, I'm getting married in like 7 years, and I'm gonna be breathing, walking, and eating food at my wedding, and I really deserve for it to be my special day. So the whole world needs to stop doing all of things until then, please, because I don't anyone to steal my spotlight, okay? Yes, all 7.8 billion of you, after all I've dreamed of this day since I was a little girl, so I should get it the way I want it. Thanks. Not the asshole. You would only be TA if you catered to your entitled sister's demands. She does not own any destination, other than her home. She sounds very extra and exhausting. Your boyfriend spent his money and planned something special. Even though he has stated he would change the destination, probably at a cost, it would be pretty ungrateful. Seriously, if she banned you from the wedding, is that really such a bad thing? Not the asshole.